Welcome back to our Take 5 with the Saints, and today, January the 18th, is actually one of our major feast days in the church. All of our days are feast days, but then you have days which carry a more significant celebration because they are an integral part of the scriptural story of Christ or of the call to us to be disciples. And we find that today not so much with the person, but with the event around a person, and that is the confession of St. Peter. Today's reading that goes with this feast day will explain exactly a little bit more about what exactly today is about. Our reading from today is from Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 through 18. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it." There's 1,000 sermons from this one passage, but for our sake today, the question is posed in all three of what we call the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. When Jesus asked, "Well, who do people say that I am?" And they answer, but then he looks at them and says, "Who do you say that I am?" And it is Peter, the impetuous, hot-headed, impulsive, who ultimately reneged on his faith for a brief time when Jesus was arrested. It was this very ordinary and complicated man who answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And it is this confession which, according to Matthew's version of this story that you just heard, was the literal foundation for the church. "On you, Peter, I will build this church, and you, Cephas, the rock, will be the foundation upon which my people shall come to know me." Now, of course, this doesn't discount the fact that there were other disciples. There were other important leaders, such as Paul, many of the women who followed Jesus. But Peter plays a prominent role, not because he was more special than the others, but in many ways we see more of Peter's story in Scriptures, and we see because of that the fact that he was just like us, a man with many faults, a person who stumbled quite frequently, and even after Jesus' resurrection, when he did take on a prominent and powerful leadership role, performing miracles, proclaiming the gospel at the threat of his own life, being arrested and imprisoned on several occasions, even then Peter still had to struggle with his own, I would say, conservatism. He was a Jew who believed that only Jews, or you had to be a Jew in order to become a Christian. And he found himself being rebuked, particularly by Paul later in his ministry, for not being as accommodating to Gentiles who were wanting to enter the faith. So even in his resurrected, powerful form, say after Jesus is resurrected and almost Peter's spiritual resurrection being in this powerful form, he still struggled with being able to articulate a vision of God's love that was holistic and that was open to all people. But it's a reminder to us, and it should be a strong reminder, that the church and the people in it are the rocks that Christ has built upon. And we, like that rock Peter, who is our example today, are just as flawed and confused as they were 2,000 years ago. But one line from this passage you just heard today is a reminder of the power given to Peter and the power that has been passed down from Peter to his successors to the successors after him, all the way down over 2,000 years of church history. It is when Jesus says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven." It is the gift of the Spirit. It is God's strength, it is God's revelation that allows us, limited human beings, to demonstrate the power and love of God, and despite our own failings and weaknesses, that strength in God's hope may be found through the message that we proclaim. Peter's end came as he was fleeing in Rome from the persecution of Nero, and according to the legend, he was on the Appian Way, leaving Rome, when Jesus came to him in a vision and asked him where he was going, to which Jesus responded to Peter, saying, "I have come to be crucified again," to which Peter returned to Rome, offered himself, was arrested, and according to legend, was crucified upside down, finishing his path of weakness in which strength was brought to perfection because of Christ's love for him. May we be able to confess in our own weakness the hope of God that comes through us and is known to give balm and life to a world desperately struggling to find hope, a world in which we struggle to find it as well. But by God's strength, we can offer it to each other and can offer the knowledge that God's love is what ultimately wins at the end of the day. Much more to think about, much more to pray about as we remember this one simple and yet life-changing confession for all of us that was uttered by Peter 2,000 years ago. Thank you for joining me. Tune in tomorrow for our next Saint of the Day. Take care.